Hello, and welcome to another exceptional edition of the Drywall podcast. I'm your host, Nick Harmon. This is the 14th podcast of the Drywall podcast. We have with us today Master Finisher, Mudman Dan, or Dan Gray, as he was known in his childhood. Dan and I have an awesome time discussing all things drywall, him almost dying of COVID, popcorn ceilings, running his own company, patching, and also payment structures.
I was going to work on a Thursday, Friday. My girlfriend had gone out with a nurse, a friend of hers, that contracted COVID and got my girlfriend sick. A couple of days later, I got sick at work. I was just kind of getting flushed, felt like a cold. I'm like, oh crap. That night, so I felt sick that morning. That night, I called the client up and said, I don't feel good. And I didn't have a COVID test at that point. I don't think they had them. So I'm like, can I postpone this job? And she's like, no, I got painters coming, flooring guys coming out.
The Drywall podcast is brought to you by Fresco Harmony. Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. We're excited to have Dan Gray on the show today. We appreciate you listening. Without further ado, Mudman Dan. Yep, we have Mudman Dan with us today on the Drywall podcast. Here we are. Did you get a chance to listen to a podcast?
I'm not gonna lie, I did not. I got home yesterday and fell asleep.
That's okay, man. That's okay. They're interesting. I mean, I have to listen to them, but they're pretty interesting. They're all different.
I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna nail them. I'm gonna start listening to them at work. But I've been like in between. I don't know if you ever see me. I'm always wearing my headphones. So I'm taking calls at work while I'm working. I'm like, if you've ever watched my videos, I don't stop ever. I'm blowing go.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you're on social media. You're pretty prevalent. Exactly. So I've been following you for a little while, maybe since the Drywall Talk days. Did we talk about that a little bit? Were you on Drywall Talk?
I don't remember per se. It's been a while, but I know you and me have known each other for a while, for a couple of years now. Yeah. Dan Gray. Dan Gray. Yeah, that's my. That's why you and Josh Gray are Mutter brother. Yeah. So we're not related, but he just happens to have the exact same last name spelled exactly the same way.
Awesome. How did you?
Drywall.
He told me, but on his podcast, I think. But how did you meet Josh?
Oh boy, how did I meet Josh? It might have been through social media. It's been so long, I don't even remember now. I think he reached out to me and said, hey, I've got some patchwork. So we were competition back in Denver. He was in Littleton and I just went everywhere. And I think he was trying to throw me some side work, some work from clients he couldn't handle. Okay. And then we just started talking, and then we built a relationship, and then we go out and have a dinner or lunch every once in a while. And then I worked on a couple of his jobs with him. We just became really good friends.
He seems like a really nice. He seems like a super nice guy.
Super chill. I mean, he is super down to earth. He'll bend over backwards for you, but like. Don't do him wrong, but he'll give you the shirt off his back if you need.
Try not to do anybody wrong if you can help it.
yeah, that's how it should be, right?
And you seem like a pretty good guy too, pretty chill.
I'm not too bad. I don't do a lot of talking. If you ever watch my videos, I hardly ever talk because I always do the time lapse thing. I just let my work do the talking. Yeah. But and most of the time I'm in an occupied home, so it's really hard to kind of go, hey, let's do it. I don't want people who are working from home or
it feels weird. I went through a spell there where I was going live a few times. It feels kind of weird, but I think that content is really golden. It's really good.
Yeah. And my reputation, I don't know if you know, is I use 5-minute mud on pretty much everything.
My guy Jack is like that. I'll buy him like 20-minute and he's like, what's this stuff? And I only use 90-minute. I'm like, just pokey, super slow.
Well, I like being home by noon. So most of my patching, smaller patch jobs, I'm home by noon drinking a beer,
Yeah,
or
good for
jumping
you.
in the pool or doing other stuff. So I can knock out multiple patches, because I don't know if you ever seen my blow dryer and a stick trick.
I think so. Yes, I think so.
So
do you have a heat gun? Do you prefer a blow dryer to a heat gun?
I'll tell you, I'm going to preach this. Don't use heat guns. They're dangerous.
Yeah.
I had 2 or 3 close calls with them where the cords got pulled out, shot it a different direction, hit my plastic, started smoking.
Yeah.
Not that the plastic would start fire, but it was like sending fumes out.
Yeah.
And another one, I shot an opposing wall versus my patch, started melting up all the paint.
Yep.
Yeah. So I quit. I switched over to blow dryers soon after.
Smart. I have a blow dryer in my truck. I have it's like this cheap little blow dryer. I've had it for 15 years.
Yeah.
Thing won't die. And then I do have a heat gun in my studio when I'm doing custom colors.
Mm-hmm.
That's it though. That's all I use it for. It seems like it dries it too quickly.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is with hot mud, which I use mine for quick set. I fast dry my 5-minute mud. It's great. Hot muds don't shrink and they don't crack like a regular normal drywall compound.
Yeah.
When you put a thick compound on and then you throw a heat gun on there, it cracks and shrivels up and it's just nasty mess.
Yeah.
So I don't recommend doing that.
Kind of burns that top layer. I do. I use the quick set when I'm doing like heavy brick covers, like that kind of stuff. People think like you can't build it up very much, but I've done like brick. I've gone over brick where it's like an inch deep. No problems. Like never in 17 years, I've never had one fail. Like that's a good track. We probably done 30 of those, 35 of those.
Let me ask you a question. What's your opinion about mesh tape and patching? What's the proper procedure?
Great question. I'll tell you my experience about mesh tape. I never knew there was a mesh tape like stigma until I used mesh tape on plaster patching plenty. Before FiberFuse, I would go in and we would do like plaster repair. And you'd have the spider cracking. And I always kind of liked mesh tape in that scenario. And I used it with regular all-purpose joint compound. Never had issues. Until I subcontracted a house that I was doing. I subcontracted to a company to come in and finish it. They hung it. I gave them a piece rate price to hang it and then a piece rate price to finish it to level 3. And then we did Fresco Harmony. They ran mesh tape. They forgot to do the porch or something, or the porch was done later. They ran mesh tape and regular joint compound on the porch, exterior like porch ceiling. The whole thing cracked. And I was like, okay, that's the last time I use mesh tape. It only has to happen once, and then it's like, well, screw that.
Was that weather related though? Was it cold? Was it?
I don't know, man, because I went back because the whole thing was Gallery Pearl, was finished in Gallery Pearl. And then I went back and I fixed that ceiling 2 more times with paper tape and it's still cracked. Like, so it might've been something with the house settling or something weird like that. But with the FiberFuse, I kind of don't see, and I don't see any purpose for mesh tape aside from when I try to like, so in New Mexico, we have these weird bulbous surfaces like Adobe style homes with like weird undulating surfaces and things like that. Now, when I try to do a plaster patch over a weird round or undulating surface with FiberFuse, it doesn't stick. It doesn't want to curve and stick. So for those instances, I'll use paper tape or fiber tape, but I kind of just go back to fiber tape, and I don't do any like residential new construction. But if I was doing new construction now, I would probably run my angles with paper tape and I would run all the field and everything with FiberFuse. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's my 2 cents on the whole tape mystery.
Okay. Because my take on, I don't use mesh tape anymore, but I did 20 years of commercial, but we always use quickset mud. And I worked for the same companies for like 10 years at a time. And I never got sent back to fix anything. So I think if you pre-fill with hot mud, use mesh tape with a first coat of hot mud, you're golden. But then, like you said, foundation issues, it's going to crack anything.
When I was in Colorado, they would run the sticks of metal. We would mesh tape the corner bead and then run the first coat with quickset. And that's a pretty badass corner at that point.
Yeah, that's how I was trained. Yeah.
And that's because of the freezing under the ground. Like it would always there's a name for it, but when the ground freezes,
Colorado's full of bentonite, so it swells up in the summertime and then it shrinks up in the wintertime.
Well, it's like it freezes underneath, and so as the temperature gets hotter, the ground beneath the house thaws out, and it causes the houses to move more. Interesting. Yeah, cool. We're getting into the nitty gritty of drywall here early on. Not Go ahead.
Have you used the Fibufuse Max yet? The reinforced Fibufuse? That stuff is awesome.
I would.
On inside corners, it doesn't rip and tear as easy.
Oh, okay.
So it's a lot more forgiving. And then if you are doing plaster repairs or just regular drywall patching, it's got reinforcement strips through it. So
it looks fabulous.
I can only find it. Yeah, and it's awesome. I love that stuff. That's my that's all I use.
Is it hard to tear because it has
you can't tear it like the normal Fibufuse. I have to use a sharp drywall knife to cut it.
So it's like a crossbreed between regular fiber tape and Fibufuse. It's like I just like the regular Fibufuse, how you can rip the edge. I do a little trick if I'm doing patching for Fresco Harmony's fabulous because it doesn't build out your patch. And you can kind of get away with 2 coats and just sealing it. And I'll rip the edge of it so that I have kind of a spiny, so it's not sharp. When I do a patch, that's just how I do it. And I mean, I'll just tear a little circle, if it's like a hole in the wall, just tear a circle so the edges are all grainy and it gives you a nice splay.
Oh, that's nice. I might have to try that trick.
Yeah, just instead of having a straight, we're always cut it straight edge. I started tearing the edge of it so it's not super straight, and it even splays out even more. It's pretty cool.
But it's all those simple little tricks that we learn over the years or by trial and error, and then then you go into a drywall forum group and they're bashing you, what do you? It's hey. It's working. It works for me. I'm just showing my way, They love it or hate it.
See, they can't really bash us here. All they're doing out there in the field right now is they're just listening to this content and they're judging us in their head, but they can't say anything about it. That's the best part. And hey, to all the listeners out there, if you're listening to the Mudman McGrain drywall podcast and you think that he's full of shit or that I'm full of shit, I challenge you to email me at info@frescoharmony.com and just let us know. Because we don't know everything. And I mean, I'm guilty too. I like to pretend, I know everything. There's a lot of plaster systems out there where people challenge me, and I've been doing the colored mud for so long that I get really tunnel vision and set in my ways, and it's just I think it's kind of a nature of who we are as drywallers.
There's a lot of competition, I could do that better, and
and I mean weird things, I went up to Trim Tex and I experienced the butt board. I'm not a hanger, but it seemed like a pretty good concept,
I love that. It works great.
And it doesn't everybody that uses it loves it, but the people that have never used it are the first ones to be that's what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, no. And it works great. Like when I was doing basements in Denver, I would run into spots where the framing was off or whatever, and you just throw one of those in there and it solves it. It's not like you're doing it on every single board, but if you have a couple spots, it's fine and it's legit. It works great.
That's funny. That's funny. So yeah, so I like I've done you are probably going to be number 14, podcast number 14. I've done a lot of podcasts, and the odd thing about it is we don't talk a lot about drywall. We get into all kinds of other weird shit.
Mudman
Dan. Robert McLaughlin, you know him, right?
Yeah.
So his podcast dropped today. Like actually, it's supposed to drop tomorrow, but like I punched the wrong button or something. So, anyways, a lot of joking. We do a lot of joking. It's very entertaining.
Okay.
And he knows his stuff. Like it's definitely cool to. And I've been doing a lot of the social influencer type people. It's going to be interesting to do larger company owners. So I'm going to start stretching out like these dudes that run like bigger companies. Like they're going to have a whole different input on the business side of things,
Yeah, like who's running Drywall Nation now? Is that Ben? Is it Ben?
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, he's pretty big in the drywall influencing world.
Yeah, I reached out to Brian, and I know Brian a little bit. And then I Trim Techs, we might be doing a training up there at the beginning of October, and I'm going to do a live, maybe do some live podcasting up there. But I told their marketing guys that like they could choose some people, and I'd be happy to interview them and just have some fun and play around with Trim Tech's products and look at new products. And then I told him like one of the ladies had some fresco in her office. I was like, that's so cool. Let's do all the different offices at the Trim Tech instead of just doing like blank walls. Like have the people that work at Trim Tech's pick a wall, and we'll like do an accent wall. Each person that's at the training can do their own accent wall in a certain color. I thought that would be cool.
Yeah. See, that's cool. That's awesome.
Functional. Like why waste material on, a sample that's going to get thrown out. Mudman Dan. So how I kind of got connected with you was you got COVID really bad. And you got like so much so that you were in the hospital and like you were ready to die.
Yeah.
And
that's to date, last July.
A year ago. So I want to dig into that a little bit just because it's kind of interesting to me, the whole concept of, we're not immortal. So there was a little bit about, you said you were kind of on the fence about the vaccinations, but you and your wife, you had decided not to get vaccinated. Was she vaccinated?
Yeah. So me and my girlfriend at the time. We were both, Moderna had come out, Pfizer was out, and Johnson had just came out. So there was like 3 choices. And then we come to find out Johnson & Johnson was kind of having whatever side effects for certain people. So we're like, okay, waiting. And then that was probably about a 3-month gap where we were trying to decide if we wanted, we weren't anti-vaccination, but I, like the rest of the world, I'm like, I want to give it a chance to see the side effects, So we waited. And then I was going to work on a Thursday, Friday. My girlfriend had gone out with a nurse, a friend of hers, that contracted COVID and got my girlfriend sick. A couple of days later, I got sick at work. I was just kind of getting flushed, felt like a cold. I'm like, oh crap. That night, so I felt sick that morning. That night, I called the client up and said, I don't feel good. And I didn't have a COVID test at that point. I don't think they had them. So I'm like, can I postpone this job? And she's like, no, I got painters coming, flooring guys coming out. I'm like, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. So I go.
Oh, you're dying? No, I need my drywall hung.
Yeah. So
Typical.
I go and I'm suffering the entire next day, get the job done, and then come to find out we go and get tested, the following day, the third day, and we both have COVID. And my girlfriend's COVID was just normal type COVID, bad symptoms, flu-like.
Yeah.
It was still intense, but mine, because I've had pneumonia, a couple cases of pneumonia in the past, and my parents were smokers for 20 years. So as a kid, I probably got a little bit of lung issue.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks, I lost like 30 pounds.
Ugh.
Yeah. And I went to a hospital here, the ER in, oh gosh, what's that? I can't think of the name, but anyways, sat in the waiting room for 8 hours. Nobody assisted me. I was like, what's going on? I kept asking
Waiting room is
questions.
probably packed with COVID people.
It's packed. I'm wearing a mask because I know I got COVID, but I'm just like, and I just literally tell the admittance people, I'm like, I'm out of here. This is retarded. I'm not going to sit here any longer waiting for service, So I left there, went home. And then 2 days later, I woke up and told my girlfriend, I'm like, let's do it. Take me to the hospital. So she took me to Sharps down in San Diego, and they were amazing. Don't even remember the trip down there. I was blacking out, in and out. And they had to drag me out into a wheelchair, roll me in. And when I got there, my body oxygen was below 50%.
So what's the timeline from you had the symptoms and called your client to trip to the hospital?
2 weeks total.
Oh, wow. So you were struggling.
2 weeks. So I was just dropping daily.
Fast.
I couldn't eat. I had no energy. I was coughing out my lungs, so at home. And then within a 2-week period, I got admitted to the hospital. Looked like I was drunk walking, trying to get to the car because I was leaning on the garage. My girlfriend was looking at video recordings, and I was a wreck.
Yeah.
Got admitted there. The nurses that night told me, because they wanted to stick the breathing tubes down me and put me in an induced coma. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. And they're like, well, you better call and say goodbye to all your people, if you can even do it. Yeah. So that was very.
What goes through your head when a nurse tells you to say goodbye to people? What was your like thought process when that happens? I mean, you start thinking about death.
A lot of tears. I just got flooded with emotions. Yeah. And then I'm like, I haven't done this. I haven't done that. I don't have this in place. I was just like, I could die tonight. Then one of the worst parts about that, Nick, you can't have friends or family in with you. You're in an isolated room, and they're all dressed up in suits, and they're telling you this stuff, and you can't. It's like you can have your kids, your mom, your dad, your friends. Yeah. Nobody can visit you and help you.
And think about all the people that did die that way. Like that went out. Yeah, a lot, thousands and thousands. So interesting. So then what I thought was very cool was you sort of started to document the process a little bit. And this is when I took notice, because I was always curious about the COVID, just like everybody, I guess. But your story sort of hit close to home, because you were like, you started to go live and talk about your experience in the hospital, which I thought was kind of cool. I mean, people can go back into your timeline, I guess, and maybe check out some of those, I mean, it's kind of cool. You had like this sort of timeline about what was going on. Now, what was your reasoning behind that? Did you want to warn people, or?
I'm like, I'm not going to preach do or don't, because everybody's going to have their own beliefs, and we're in America, you can do whatever you want. But I was like, this is what happened to me. Don't let it happen to yourself if you can avoid it, because you don't want to be in the hospital on those machines. I literally could hear when they would go, I think it was a code blue or code red, and I would hear the doors opening to the rooms next to me. Those were people that freaking emotional. They passed away.
Yeah, they're dying.
While I was in the same room. So I was on a mission to eat every ounce of that crappy hospital food that they gave me. I was taking whatever I was doing. I was just compliant with everything. I didn't fight them one bit. I'm like,
No.
I just wanted to be healthy and get out of there. They wouldn't let
Interesting.
me get out of bed and move around, but I was lifting pillows, trying to gain my strength back,
Yeah.
do leg lifts and stuff. And the nurses would be, that's why I was documenting that they'd be looking in the room laughing at me because I was doing leg lifts, I was so frail and fragile that I wanted to get healthy.
You
So
had a
that's why I was
will.
documenting.
You had like a rejuvenation, like a will to live.
Yeah, and
Seems
the
natural.
breathing was legit. Like I could not breathe, but it every day my oxygen level would get a little better. And then I was in the hospital a month and a half, 2 weeks, and then the
Wow.
intensive care, the surgical intensive care, and then another 2 weeks up in normal intensive care, and then like the third or fourth, fifth, sixth week, like getting towards a normal bedroom, no normal doctor room.
Wow. So like 45-ish days.
Yeah.
That is
It
a
was
long time to
eye-opening, long time. Every day of that was by myself. So
that's a long time to be in the hospital.
yeah.
Okay. So post COVID, would you say that you have a renewed lease on life? Do you look at life differently?
I appreciate everything a lot more.
Yeah.
And this is the scary fact about COVID. I'm still not 100% with my smell, still not 100% with my taste, and I still have lung issues. So like yesterday when I was telling you, yeah, I'll listen to that podcast and when I get home, I've been hanging a drywall ceiling double layer by myself for 2 days.
Yep.
It is taxing on me. I used to be just like, slam that up to do.
Yeah.
Now, every little bit, I'm like huffing and puffing. I'm getting better. I can feel over time, but a year has gone by and I'm still have some side effects. I've been vaccinated. I'm fully vaccinated.
Sure.
I've got my boost. I'm on my third shot. And since I'm a high risk now, I have another shot coming here pretty soon, another month or so. So
okay. And do you that's what I was going to ask. You never smoked?
No, but
you just
I
had
was a kid. I was, I had secondhand. I remember being in my parents' cars. The windows are rolled up. They're just blown. The 70s.
Oh, dude, I was right there with you, buddy. I was right there with you. And between the legs and the cigarette, the little wing window. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I lived in that car. I lived in that house. Yeah, it wasn't a thing. People didn't think about smoke like they do now.
But thank God I never was a smoker. I've never enjoyed I tried smoking, as a dumb teenager, but I was like, it wasn't for me. So
yeah, no shame to the smokers out there. No shame to the smokers. You might want to consider quitting, but hey, no shame. We all have...
on that note though, when you're on an oxygen machine and you're struggling for breath, you might want to think twice about what you're puffing on, because if you ever end up on oxygen, it is a real struggle. And as drywallers, we're around a lot of dust and fiberglass particles and particulates, so it's a dirty trade anyway. So
I breathed a bunch. Luckily, I mean, I talk about that with Fresco Harmony, like the lack of sanding. You see those pictures, people to me, stop me if I'm wrong, sanding is glamorized in our industry. It always has been. And especially not wearing a mask. Like I remember working in the union, dudes sanding all day, the journeyman guys, and then like big puffs of dust coming out of their mouth and like, and the dust coming off, and it's kind of glamorized, but the reality is like nobody likes it. It's the worst job there is. And it's dangerous. It really is.
Exactly.
So be aware, just be aware, when you're sanding. And then I see people with full respirators. I'm like, dude, that is smart,
Yeah. I wear a bigger, when I'm sanding big time, I wear a bigger respirator.
A full respirator with a gasket with the air filter.
And then I got the pre-filters. But I also nowadays, since I'm with I only do this with texture, not smooth wall, but I melt everything back in with a wet sponge, and it melts that my hard lines on my patches right back into itself. So when you spray texture, you never, even though if you sand, sometimes you'll still see an outline. When you melt it back in, if you do it just right, you get a perfect blend on the patch.
Good tip. Good tip. Sometimes I do that, man. Fresco Harmony patches are so tricky. They're all different, and you're not just blending and then it's like it goes away. You have to like faux it out. I use a lot of paint techniques. I was using paint today. I was fauxing out these little spots with the match paint. There's all kinds of weird techniques,
See, that's color, like Venetian plaster.
The color's another level. They do it in stucco too. Like the old school stucco dudes, they'll like go around and like touch up the stucco with match paint.
And I've never seen anybody do good exterior stucco patching. It's always sticks out like a sore thumb. So I'd love to find a guy that could do that, and watch what he's doing.
Good stucco. I mean, we do a lot of stucco down here. Good stucco guys will, but it's a practice, and it's like I'm way better at patching than Jack. I do most of the patching. Damage control, I call it.
Have you ever done a popcorn patch?
No. I would tell him I'll cover it with Fresco Harmony, or here's a number of a person that call Daniel Osborne.
Because popcorn patches are hit or miss. You'll see a cold seam, or if you float it in just right, they'll look good. I don't like doing them, but I tell people in my contract 50-50. You're either gonna love it or hate it. But if you hate it, I'm still getting paid because I told you up front. But the nice part is I'm second generation drywall. My dad sprayed all that crap on. I'm taking it all back off. So I'm just keeping the money in the family.
That's right. That's funny. Yeah, I met Dwayne Freeman out of Oklahoma, Broken Arrow, and they're down here in Oklahoma City. Freeman Drywall Mud. He was bragging about how his dad came up with the non-asbestos popcorn. And I was like, I don't know if you want to be bragging about that, dude.
Yeah, no, I don't even like doing popcorn scrapes anymore, to be honest with you. It's so messy, and I'm like, and I literally, this is going on the record, I just charge a lot to do it, because if I'm going to do it, I'm going to make it worth my time, because otherwise I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I just raised my popcorn rates like by $1 a square foot. I'll cover though, Jack and I'll cover if it's like open. We'll scrape. Mm-hmm. Jack likes to scrape. We'll wet it down and we'll scrape. But for the most part, it's almost faster to just walk. We're used to spreading mud anyways. It's almost faster to walk around and just coat that popcorn. And then you don't have the mess. It encapsulates it. And then we'll go right into the 3-coat process of Fresco. But if you lay out like a section, and what happens is it wets that popcorn layer, gets kind of moist, and then so I'll lay out a section, and then when you go back to it, it like it'll lay down like flat, it like activates the popcorn underneath. If you let that mud sit on there for a little bit, and you can just you can smooth it right out. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, literally, if they've never painted that popcorn ceiling, you could scrape it off in a bucket, re-wet it, and respray that junk.
Oh, interesting.
That's the way that system works.
So weird.
But I agree with you, because if it's oil-based paint on there, it ain't coming off scraping. So I just plow it down and reskim it and call it good. So
interesting. Yep. Or if and especially if it has asbestos in it. I mean, you just want to encapsulate it. Otherwise, you're paying thousands for asbestos abatement, team to come in, and there's no way I want to get into that gig.
No,
forget about that. I mean, even just Jack will go through and just kind of scrape the top layer, and I'm like, dude, be careful.
Yeah,
you never know what's in that crap. Post COVID, you are so you run your own company?
Yeah, I back in Colorado, I was running me and my nephew. I trained my nephew how to finish, so it was me and him. And now out here in California, I'm running solo. So, but I'm doing that for a reason, because one, it's hard to find a good helping hand finishers. because I'm very picky. I'm very meticulous. I have
Yep.
my styles, so I really don't. And I'm so fast paced on patching. I don't have the
Yep.
time to really, at this point, take somebody on and train them. So
It just costs you money.
and I do honestly, I do great patching. Patchwork is kind of, a lot of people don't want to do it. They want the bigger glorified, hey, I'm building houses or doing a 50,000 square feet commercial. I'm like,
Yeah.
been there, done that, did
Yeah.
that 20
Yeah.
years ago. I'll take a patch any day of the week. Like I said, in and out 2 or 3 hours, put in my plastic tent, spray, walk out the door with cash, and
Yeah.
done for the day.
Yeah. You're not dealing with builders. That's nice. The
Yep.
homeowners are awesome. Can I get you a check? And it's like
Yep.
builders. It's like, dude, where's my money? I finished I financed your job 2 months ago. Like
30 to 90 days they have builders.
my guys
And I'm
are
like,
paid. I need to get paid, dude. It's like, why in the world do we have to like chase money from builders?
I hardly
And
ever work for builders just for that reason. I'm like, and they're fly by night, so you don't even know if you will get paid.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
no.
And then you got to chase them down. It's like there's builders here you got to chase down. It's like, a couple of jobs I've gotten paid up front and it was just unprecedented. Like where I demanded it. They wanted me to do some specialty plaster, nobody else could finish it. I was like, yeah, I can sort of match that with Fresco Harmony. I've done it before. It'll look okay. No guarantees. I need to get paid up front. And they paid it. And I went in and did my deal and the guy bitched and he was unhappy. And I was like, told you, there's been a couple like that. I wish that I could do that on every job, but you really have to have some chutzpah because you say, I want to get paid up front and people like freak out. It's so not normal in our industry to get paid up front that I don't know. Honestly, I've never heard of a story of anybody else ever doing it.
Yeah. Back in Denver in California are two different beasts, because in Colorado I could ask for 50% if I wanted. I don't think I ever did 100%, but like on basements, and here's where this is how I break out. Like if it's a $10,000 job and I'm framing, I want $2,500 for material and labor. Then I want $2,500 when I hang it, in the drywall, $2,500 tape and finish, texture at the end. And what that does is it keeps me and the client in line, because they're getting partial payments instead of a big lump. Hey, you owe me 10 grand at the end. And they're like, what?
Yeah.
I like to do the baby step walk that way, because it keeps everybody's getting paid, and I'm there every day doing this, not these like, oh, I want half up front, and then they don't show up, or they run with the money. And that's why clients they're like cautious, because like, hey, we just paid that other guy and we haven't heard from him.
Yeah, no shame to the builders and homeowners that have gotten stiffed. I get it. That does happen, but not every subcontractor is a criminal. And do a background on these guys, like, get some references if, and I invite people to get references. I mean, at a certain point you get a reputation, for being a non-idiot. But I mean, I still to this day, and the horror stories are getting worse because the workers are less educated in the trades. They're charging more, and it's just a shit show. Now, I mean, you're kind of wise to go solo.
You know how I do that for my clients is I use the Instagram platform and Facebook.
Yep.
I record everything I do. I do that live video, and then I have a time lapse video, so they they're coinciding with each other.
Yep.
And then when a client calls me, they're like, "Hey, I got a water damaged ceiling. I got this patch 2 or 3 days ago. I just did that." Or I can go back a year. I've got over 1,000 different repairs on my Instagram, and I'm like scrolling through, copy paste that, send it to them, and they're like, "Wow, that was interesting." So I use that for my references.
Oh, so new lease on life. Did your drywall, I guess, did your business change pre-COVID versus post-COVID? How do you do business differently now?
Just all it did was slow me down a little.
Okay.
Like I said, physically, and I'm still doing really good. My phone's always ringing.
Yeah.
I use Google. I love and hate relationship with Yelp, and
Yeah.
then Facebook business, so.
Yeah. And how do you just stay busy doing patches? That's interesting to me. You
So
just have a reputation
I
or
have a reputation like Google. They just changed the platform. Google Business
okay.
used to, like, I would put patching in there, and then I'd throw down a whole bunch of pictures and videos and whatever
Okay.
of my work, and then you can network, or not network, but you can pick your area, your radius. So I put in all the areas I'd want to work in. So I put water remediation, drywall repair, just a whole list of what I offer. And a lot of that's word of mouth. Nextdoor was another good platform from the neighborhoods.
Okay. Yep.
And when people call me and they're like, "Hey, I got a new build," I'm like, "Sorry, I don't do new builds anymore."
Wow, you'll just turn them down, huh?
I just have to turn down, and then I can say, "Hey, I got a buddy that does this," and maybe I'll
Yeah.
throw him that bone. But
You turn down all that cheddar, huh?
I do, because I tell that client that the next guy that's calling me is going to say, "Hey, I got a ceiling patch," and I'm like, "Yes, I'll take it." And I don't even hardly ever go out, except for elderly people anymore, to do estimates in person. I, before COVID happened, had been doing virtual estimates for years, for probably 10
Okay.
years. So once iPhone technology and phones started taking pictures, I'm like, "Send me a picture, give me one from distance, give me one up close so I can see what kind of texture I'm matching." And I give them a quote that way. I tell them my availability, like lightning fast, like I'm doing it that's the same moment.
Okay.
So, and that saves me a ton of time, a ton of gas money. And like gas is like $6-7 out here in California right now. So I don't ever drive to a job unless it's the only time. I take that back. Sometimes I'll do flood cuts, because flood cuts can get a little more intricate. Like, okay,
Yeah.
closets,
Yeah.
but
You're
it's
pretty
worth it.
lean. Your business model is very lean.
Yeah.
You're
And
like, I don't even want to waste the gas to go look at it unless it's like a flood damage or something major,
yeah.
That makes sense.
So, and it works for me. And if somebody doesn't like that, I'm like, "I apologize. I'm super busy," and which I always am. So I'm like, I really can't. I might be able to schedule in a week or two and go look at that if you want to wait that long. But most people, with my reviews, my reputation, word of mouth, I land probably 90% of my work, that I bid,
Yeah.
which
And
I think
your prices are good. They're like high.
yeah, they're good. I don't know if I should say that. I won't leave the house for less than $350 for a
Okay.
patch, and
It's nothing, dude.
that's chump change. Yeah,
That'll
but
fill up your tank.
I can knock that out in, like I said, in an hour or two. With hot
Yeah.
wet blow dryers and in a close radius, because I'm kind of what's the word? A little grumpy when it comes to long.
Spoiled. You're spoiled.
Spoiled. Yeah, like I don't want to drive more than 45 minutes either direction.
Yeah, that's smart.
If possible. I'll do it once in a while when it's a good paying job, but otherwise I'm staying more local. And adapt. I mean, if I have to adapt, I'm going to change my business model and adapt a little. Like, I don't offer paint. I don't want to paint. I don't have enough room in my van to carry painting materials.
No.
I'm a licensed California. I have to have a drywall license. I'm a licensed drywall contractor. So I'm just going to do drywall,
Yeah, you have to be licensed in New Mexico too.
Oh, are they now? Okay. Because Colorado wasn't that way. I used to.
I've had my license for 8-9 years.
Okay. I didn't know New Mexico. I knew it was like California, Florida.
Yeah. You wouldn't think with the quality of work here. I don't think it matters much, but it's that lack of quality is probably universal, not just here in Albuquerque.
So are you like OCD when you walk in someplace and you start seeing bad work? Because it's like, oh, my eye just goes naturally.
It sucks worse with Fresco Harmony because I notice texture. Like I'll notice the entire room and think about how like this room could be better. Like you walk into Santa Fe, you go into a gallery where they're selling $45,000 pieces of art and they have this shit ass texture on the wall, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Or like the El Dorado major hotel in Santa Fe, $1,000 a night and they got popcorn on the ceilings, like that kind of shit just like bugs me to no end. Like,
why?
really?
Yeah.
This is the best you could come up with. So that's a little different affliction, but yeah, of course I notice every patch. I'm always like, oh yeah, you could float that wall and those patches, those little things would be gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had the challenge with me comes from like today I gave this client a very good price. We're doing 2 rooms, but they're looking at the whole house. They want the entire house covered, texture and paint. And I'm doing the first 2 rooms at $3 a square foot, but I gave them a bid for $250. 5,000 square foot house. All right. Okay. They're at $37K for the entire house. The drywall company, and he was cool. The owner was cool. He told me where the drywall company came in at level 5, 2 coats and paint. They were about 3,000 over my bid.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow.
So I was right in there. I was like, great. Because all we're doing, we're not sanding it all. So if you're doing level 5, it's like grind between the coats, light. A lot of work. It's got to be tits. And then you got to have, and then the paint's going to show everything. Forget about it. Nightmare all day long. Piles of sanding dust everywhere. The ceiling's like a heavy kind of broquet. Okay. And Jack went in. So we're kind of dialing it. So I have to do that damage control. I have to talk to them about the finish. And then now all of a sudden they're getting a little bit picky, but which is okay. They're dropping coin. I get it. But also, like, you're not dropping that much. But the difference between we're doing Patterson Snow sanded, and so it kind of looks like it looks very much like Venetian plaster. It's really pretty. But we're doing 2 coats, thin base coat, second coat with the sand. You let it dry halfway, and then you seal it. Okay. And kind of like wet floating, or wet sanding.
Yeah.
With your trowel, it calms down that second coat, and they're happy as shit. He told me today, he's like, we're going with you, but they're still being picky. So Jack gets all nervous, and I'm like, dude, don't worry. I'll talk. Just let me talk to him, because then I go into sales mode, but a lot of that with what I do, a lot of that expectation management, like, dude, you're not paying for plaster. You're paying for this. It's 2 coats of this. It's 1 coat of sealer. This is how it looks.
Yep. And that's what you got to sell. And that's how it's got to be in your paperwork. And that's what they got to do. They got to know the expectations.
Yep. Yep. There's no guarantees. And this is verbatim. There's no guarantees from sample to surface due to lighting, other colors present, furniture, and substrate. So if I'm going over a heavy broquet on the ceiling, that finish might look a little different than when I'm going over an orange peel on the wall.
Yeah.
Now, so yeah, my contract's pretty sound. And at the end of the day, none of that really matters. People have expectations, and a lot of any specialty finish is managing expectations. Yeah. Paint and texture, they know what they're going to get. Venetian plaster, Fresco Harmony, these finishes, it's like
they're specialized.
that is a challenging aspect of this that drywall guys don't want to deal with. So, that's a hard part of jumping into the specialty stuff. It's not impossible, but you have to be willing to have those conversations.
Now, have you guys branched out into further west? Where's Fresco Harmony? Where's it most popular?
That's a good question. No, we're in like 48 states. It just depends. It depends. I get a lot of traction from the drywall groups. Yeah, maybe 48 states. There might be a couple states we're not in, but sales are pretty steady. But in Colorado, we're doing really well. But I think that's only because we have locations there.
Nice.
Vail, Aspen, higher end markets.
Mm-hmm. Those are great markets.
Anybody that wants specialty finish, but everybody's tired of plaster. Mm-hmm. And no offense to plaster. It's hard to do. It's laborious. You can't patch it. It's expensive. There's a laundry list.
And it's old school guys, and there's not a lot of new guys doing plaster.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks beautiful if you do it properly. It just is very time consuming. It's hard to get, $10 a square foot or whatever. And if you notice, they never talk about square footage price. It's like, yeah, in theory, that is a beautiful finish, but you're competing against tile or marble at those prices. Put a slab of marble up, So it's a challenging sale. I'm always talking about pricing because I think it's important, and the value proposition of Fresco Harmony gets me footage, and it's an interesting conversation. And it's kind of why the Drywall podcast kind of started, is because I'd call dudes like you'd call me up and be like, we just start blabbing about drywall, and like, hey, I got a couple walls. The clients want them skimmed. I'm thinking about Fresco. What should I do? And then I'll just, tell you what to do.
So how long have you been doing drywall?
I started in the union maybe 99.
Okay.
And I was doing drywall for I did a year and a half in the union, and then I moved down to Bisbee, Arizona, and I worked piece rate for about a year and a half there. And then I moved up to Crested Butte, Colorado, and I did that, rounded my education. I got into the pool trowel texture, and that was my boss's idea. We were using pool trowel and Hawk, and I had never used a Hawk, and I was like, okay, I'll do it. And we were finishing walls to like a level 3, just tape the angles, and then we were floating out the whole wall with this Santa Fe texture. And I was like, that's pretty cool, and it covers a lot.
Yeah, it saves a lot of work.
It saves a lot of work. And then I learned a little bit of hanging there, but then in Crested Butte, that's where the idea of, you could use this texture and you could color the mud and do like paint and texture at the same time. That was the original idea.
Okay.
And it morphed, I mean, obviously the first challenge was, how the hell do I consistently color a batch of mud? That was my first challenge.
Exactly.
And then you got to seal it. It's not, how do you seal it?
And when you're doing the colors, is it mud specific? Because every manufacturer has different mud.
Not at all. It's just it's a formulated color for one 3.5 gallon box of joint compound, or you could also use a color pack in a 5 gallon bucket of green lid.
Okay.
If you wanted to. Your color's going to be a little lighter though, because you're using more material.
A little bit more mud.
Nice. And now, have you used like the level 5 or any other skimming blades?
I started out with the Tape Tech skim blades.
Okay.
And those are nice. They're just that plastic body on them. I mean, as far as lightness, they're great, but they just, if you drop it, they crack, they break real easily. So I got hooked up with Columbia, and Columbia sent me out 3 different sizes of their skim blades.
Sure.
And those things are like built like tanks. They're super heavy, but I just like the way they feel. It's like going from a China made car to a German made car. You just feel the quality in it.
Yeah, Columbia seems like a pretty good company. Like I like their branding too. I like the black and the Predator, bazooka. It's pretty cool.
They're standing behind their stuff pretty good. Level 5, I've heard their tools, but I mean, I can't say because I've never run them. I have some of their knives and pans.
Okay.
And they're a knife.
Jack loves their knives. Yeah, we've got a couple. They gave me some stuff to give away at like trainings and stuff. And I've met Scott a couple times at the Intex. I just saw him at the recent. Really cool guy. And they're always like coming up with new stuff, but he's very passionate about his stuff, man. I mean, when you meet those guys in person, it's like the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, well, that's what's nice is when you get a ton of followers like that, and you find the right interest with the bigger companies, then they send you out some swag. You get perks once in a while. So
yeah. So with level 5, Scott, those guys have been super supportive. Joe with Trim Techs has always been supportive of me and what I'm up to, and that's cool. Like, I dig that.
Never give up. Never give up. Be a fighter.
Who was it? It was Rick Moore, drywall hand finishers. At one time, I'll say this. I was probably feeling down about something and I posted and maybe had, an air of like, defeatedness or something. And he was like, dude, don't ever stop. Like, this industry needs people like you. And it was it was the best thing that somebody could have said to me at that time, and I don't know. I don't know.
I learned from the old school guys. I don't know about you, but I've been doing this 35 years now.
Yep.
I started when I was 7 years old.
Yep.
Spotting screws in homes with my dad, because no OSHA back in the day. My dad smoking, cutoffs, half the time with a shirt, without a shirt in these hot houses. And I was spotting screws till I got bored. Penny a screw, and I'd make
nice
$1 or something to buy some candy. Then I'd go out in the field and play. But and then so I just kept, every summer working with my dad a little here, and then got in high school and I was like, I don't want to be a drywaller. So I was taking vocational classes for the printing industry.
Okay.
So I was a lithographic film stripper for 3 years.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it was pre-press. So pre-press, this is back before all the technology, computers.
Yeah.
So we had the big Kluge cameras. I was in a dark room all day.
Yeah.
And I just got fried and burned out doing that. So I did that for 3 years. And then the technology changed. And they're like, hey, you can go out and do the bindery, putting all the books and stitching together. I was like, no, I was trained for this, because it was all going to Max, computerized, they call it stripping, to make the plates right off the, for the press. Crazy. So they phased out my department. I was like, I'm out of here. So I went back, and my dad had a summer job. It was for the post office. It was Davis Bacon wages. So it was prevailing. It was great. So I was like making $20 an hour to start. This was back in '89. So I was like, yeah, okay. I was making bank.
Yeah, that was good in '89. Yeah.
And that's what got me sucked into the construction industry, was you make that good money,
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting too. I went to college, but as soon as I got into construction, I was just like, oh man, why did I waste a year and a half in college? But I feel like I might have been ahead of my time thinking that way.
I didn't go to college, so I can't say, but I think there's perks to both. Like, I can't sit in a cubicle all day. My job changes daily, changing job sites. I meet interesting new clients.
Yeah.
And I have my own independence. I wish I wouldn't have done 20 years of commercial. I wish I would have started my business 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd be sitting pretty right now, and saving all that money and not working hourly for the man. And it would have been. So if you got the skills and you can do it on your own, take off with that as soon as you can. Don't sit on your haunches too long, because it's better to do your own thing versus working for somebody. But you need to build up those skills first, because a lot of people are just like, I look at the Facebook and say like, I've been doing this 9 months and now I'm gonna like.
There's two aspects of that. One is, yes, know your trade before you branch out on your own. The other one is you have to, when you go out on your own, there's a jumping off point where you have to risk failure.
Yeah.
And that is a challenging one. So the guys that are jumping out there on their own, I try not to judge them too harsh, because even if they have 9 months and they don't know shit, they're going to learn. But definitely there's nothing wrong with working in the trade for 5, 6, 7 years and really getting a solid foundation. And I was lucky too that I had my boss in Crested Butte he was open about talking about, I didn't understand square footage price, but I was inquisitive. I was always like, how do you bid this house? Yeah. And he would tell me, he's like, I measured this wall, because he's like, it's square footage. I was like, a wall square footage? Do you count the door? Do you count the window? And I was asking questions, and he was cool though. If you have a boss that's a dick and won't like divulge that information, find a new boss. Yeah. Because there's no reason why you shouldn't know why you're getting paid the amount you are. Also, if you're good, ask for a raise. There's no shame in that either. I asked for a raise many times and gotten it, because I knew my value. If you're making the boss money, then you can ask for a raise. but learning about pricing is that, I mean, that, that's why you're getting people on the pages asking about pricing, because they're jumping out there and nobody ever taught them.
I was like, how many times? That's every time I open Facebook. That's the very first thing. How much are you guys charging? What should I charge for this? And it's like,
Yeah.
it's the never ending question.
Well, it's funny that the drywall guys get so upset about that too. And it's interesting. I get it. Like I get it, but that person is not going to learn because they probably have a boss that's not telling them.
Nobody taught me, Nick.
Part of it is, they don't want to know. They don't want you to know how much they're making off your ass. I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, my commercial companies never told us a lick of anything. The estimators never would say one thing. So when I branched out on my own, when I did my first patch ever, it was like, how much do I want to make on this? I was making $200 a day hourly, working 20, 25 bucks an hour for a company. Yeah. So I want to make at least $200 for the day. But when you think as a business owner, it's like, no, you got to take that out where you got wear and tear on your vehicle, you got insurance, you got, the material costs. So it's like, okay, so I got to start at this point. So 350 all day, every day was my entry point. Like, and I tell people that when they ask for a patch repair, they're like, how much is it gonna, like, well, that doorknob hole, as much as I want to go do it for you for $100, it's gonna be
and honestly, Dan, that's cheap, dude. I think you could have a $500 minimum and tell people that, and you get it.
I do. I'm up quite a bit.
Okay, good.
I'm there plus some.
Okay, good. Yeah. I like that advice though, and I like that direction of conversation. Generally I ask somebody what would they if they could bestow a pearl of wisdom upon our drywall community, what would they say? What would you tell our community?
You got to have confidence in yourself and what you're providing. People don't want to see you hesitant or, I don't know. You just know what you're doing. Like I said, you got to have that basis of experience. Like, because I did that commercial training for 4 or 5 years. Shoot, it was like spotting screws for like the first 6 months. And then they're like, hey, do an angle by hand. And then, you move on to corner bead, nail metal. Yeah. And it's just those basic steps. You get good at that. And then you take that. And if you're going to do your own thing, then you apply that to, those same principles. And that's a good foundation. And then like texture, since I was commercial, all smooth wall, I had to learn it on my own. Yeah. I bought a hopper but I was a little different. I had old scraps of drywall. I'd be outside messing around, practicing with that stuff. Yeah. Where a lot of guys, same on the forums, how do I match this? Well, texture is air pressure, water content. It's a whole bunch of different steps. Yeah. If you're doing a knockdown, if you knock it down too hard and too flat, you get the big, too soon, you get big flat spots. If you do it too slow, you'll make micro dots. It's a whole conglomerate of like just general knowledge that you learn that over time. Like, and I'm an OCD on my texture, so I'll scrape it back off or I'll respray it, dry it. Yeah,
you posted one recently where you were like, "Does this look good to you guys?" And I was like, "Well,
that wasn't my patch."
I think he's testing. He's either testing us or because I was like, "Yeah, I mean, it kind of looks like shit, but whatever. If the clients like it."
That was my OCD. I was working within 4 feet of that spot, and I'm actually going to possibly go back. I didn't spray that or paint that, so I was like, "What's your take on this? Would you leave this?" Because I wouldn't have left that. That bothers me. Too big a flat spot. I know sometimes in bigger houses, it happens. You get a whole crew knocking down. That's why it happens. But when I'm doing individual stuff on my wall, I'm trying to get as uniform as possible.
That's a testament to your integrity. So that's good. That's good. Mudman Dan, he likes to leave a no trace, right? That's the goal. We weren't even here.
Patch, but I try and make them as seamless and as blended as possible. But lesson learned, Nick. Paperwork has to be in order. Yeah. And if once you have that, then you can go file those liens. Yes, it's a pain in the butt, but at least you have leverage to go, hey, we're going to court. I'll see you in court. You want to waste your time? Fine. I'll waste my time over, $500, whatever. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but at least you have that, because when it's just a handshake, it's not like the old days when men were men, and now it's like, you better
get a signed just get a signed contract. It keeps, and I tell my clients, it keeps everybody honest. This also makes sure that I come and do the work.
Yeah.
It's not just making sure that I get paid. It makes sure that I show up and do what I say that I'm going to do. It works both ways. Yeah. So good stuff.
I've seen in those forums, guys are like, I can't get paid. What should I do? And guys are like, go over with the baseball bat. Well, that was the old days. That don't work so much anymore.
No, you'll end up in jail.
Yeah.
There's a lot of us out there in the drywall industry, and it's a curious thing. And these are questions that people want to know. They're coming on, and I think this is a more intimate, less aggressive format than Facebook. Yeah. Where maybe we can help, like the newcomer coming up, and people that are curious, about the trade, and it's just something interesting to listen to while you're on the job, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm passionate about it now, because I've run across hundreds of amazing clients, and they like my work, which just gives me more fuel, more fire to like, hey, I'm always trying to tweak my stuff, make it better, quicker, without losing quality. So I'm just super passionate about it. Yes, it's just drywall, but you know what? Drywall can be hung kind of by anybody. It takes a special person or a lot of practice to be a good finisher and have a good eye. Running mud, seeing high edges, seeing, blending textures. I think finishing to me is more on the artistic side.
Yeah, it's a real art.
I think it's a lot different. Plaster guys, Venetian guys, and anybody that's putting mud on a wall, even your case, it's got to be applied just right, or it'll look like an eyesore. Mm-hmm. You can never make it go away with paint. Sometimes you can cover it with more texture, but it's got to be, the underlying has to be solid.
Yeah. Mudman Dan, thank you for being on the Drywall podcast today.
Exciting. A world of difference, buddy. Like your product and Venetian plaster are just amaze me because of the colors and differences you can do. Whereas I'm not gonna lie, man, drywall mud is just wax on, wax off, wax on, maybe texture here and there. So when you add that pizzazz to it, it's like night and day.
Yeah, it's fun.
Cool.
All right, sir. Well, you have a good evening, and we will catch up with you soon. Thank you.
Sounds good. Great talking to you.
All right, good talking to you. Bye.
Yep.
Special thanks to Mudman Dan for being on the Drywall podcast today. We certainly appreciate your time with us, as always, to help take us out, the Dark Lord himself, the devil.
Thank you, Nick. I certainly enjoyed listening to Mudman Dan's story. Seems like a very knowledgeable character, and doesn't seem likely I will be seeing him anytime soon. Seems like a good guy. I appreciate you once again having me on the show. Back to you.
Don't mention it. We love having you. The Drywall Podcast is brought to you by Fresco Harmony. Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. If you are interested in trying some Fresco Harmony, you can email us at info@frescoharmony.com, and we will ship you a sample pack absolutely free. Thank you for listening to the Drywall Podcast today. We certainly appreciate it. And remember, as always, keep drywalling.